JP,
We're rolling.
what's up, dude?
How you doing?
Good, man.
We've
How are
talked
you?
a lot already.
I know,
Is there
man.
anything left?
No, good.
I
Thanks
don't
for
know.
coming in, bro.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
JP, I want to talk about your background before we get into exactly what your company does and some of the other questions.
Okay. How far back do we want to go?
As far as you want to go, dude.
Well, I come from a little farm town in rural Michigan. You know, one
Midwest.
stoplight, bunch of cornfields. Got out, served in the U.S. Army as an Army Ranger. That was an interesting experience. And got out, went to college, Wayne State, Detroit. Graduated, went on to law school, St. John's School of Law in New York. Did corporate litigation for a very short period of time.
Sure.
Realized it wasn't for me, and I'd started writing while I was practicing, and I was fortunate enough to do that reasonably well and get an agent and a manager, and I moved to L.A. and was a screenwriter.
No shit. I didn't know that about you,
Pretty
dude.
financially successful one for a little over a decade. Did not get a lot of original work produced, but sold a lot of original work. Did some rewrite work on an embarrassing film called Torque.
Okay.
Which you'll probably...
Torque or Twerk?
Torque.
Twerk.
Space Torque. No, I wish it was Torque.
I
That
was
probably
like,
would have been
dude,
more
yeah,
entertaining.
yeah.
Torque is
How much
like
writing is in that?
It's like Fast and the Furious on motorcycles.
Okay.
Not a good experience. Terrible director. I eventually got fired for not wanting to turn it into Charlie's Angels on motorcycles.
Sure.
I was trying to do
And he was committed to
I
doing
was
that.
trying to do a Western, classic, arch themes, you know. At any rate, didn't work out. Last project I did was an episode of CSI New York called Death House. You can watch that. And then the writer's strike hit.
Yep.
Shit got weird. And I did one of these. And I decided to get into cannabis. And
Sure.
started as a cultivator with 3 3x3 trays and 3 400-watt lights in the very small basement.
That right there is the dream
my
right
house.
there, the genesis of it all.
And from there, it went to the garage and the spare bedroom. And from there, it went to a warehouse and then to a bigger warehouse and then to some greenhouse projects and then a large cultivation properly licensed. You know, obviously when Prop 64 hit, you know, the world changed and I didn't want to operate illegally.
Sure.
You know, Prop 215 provided a, let's call it a gray market economy, but you could operate within the letter of the law and avoid
Yep.
real problems if you did it the right way. So when Prop 64 hit, you know, we all had to change. I had been working with my partner, Ruse. We sort of had a strategic alliance over the last decade, and he brought me into some licensed projects he was working on as a partner. The one in Long Beach we didn't get off the ground, but we did get the retail in Santa Ana off the ground. We opened August 3rd of last year. It's a big deal. We just completed our renewals today.
Hey.
So
That's a
we're
big
coming
deal.
into year 2, and that's the Cliff Notes version of my
Sure.
my journey to cannabis.
It's eclectic for sure, man.
You know, here's probably one of the best things that happened to me in my life is we're told these things when we grow up, right? You got to, you know, you be responsible. You have to get good grades, go to college, you know, get a law degree.
Follow the
Be
blueprint.
a doctor or lawyer, and whatever the fucking
Yep.
story is, right? So, you know, I did my version of that, and I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm in a firm in Midtown Manhattan in New York City with, you know, the dream job and the closet full of suits and the beautiful apartment in the West Village, and you know,
You made it.
I did, right.
Minted.
Here I am.
Yep.
And I could not have been more fucking miserable. By the way, how are we with F-bombs on this show?
Sweet,
We're
yeah.
all right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah. We're great with them.
So when you do it all the right way and you're getting paid, and it was so bad, I was coming into the office a half an hour early, which meant 7 instead of 7:30, to meditate on gratitude.
Whoa.
Because I thought something was wrong with me. Why am I not happy? Why am I so dissatisfied?
And this is just a sense as you're walking around
Just
doing your
hated it.
job.
I hated the culture. I didn't really care for the people. I didn't like the things that I was working on. I mean, multi-billion-dollar class action litigation involving insurance company X, where we're defending them against defrauding consumers.
Yeah.
That's not something that makes me feel good when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I understand everyone's entitled to a defense, and this is how the law works. It just doesn't get my dick hard.
Yeah.
You know,
For
just
sure.
fucking doesn't. And through a set of fortuitous circumstances that I didn't have much to do with, I started acting a bit, did some independent film, some off-Broadway theater, led me into writing, found my calling. And as I was involved in those communities, I had a real passion for it, and it was something that I enjoyed. And I was fortunate enough to, within a year of starting writing, to have an agent and a manager, and I sold a pitch to Paramount, and I was off, and that felt like home.
That's awesome.
For a long time until that crashed. And then that was a whole nother chapter of, if I'm not a writer, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
And that took a
So
decade.
you've had careers. Most people walk through their life with jobs. Job. You went career, entrepreneur.
So to walk it back to my point, when you did it all the right way and you have everything you're supposed to have and you're still miserable, you have nothing to lose.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely nothing to lose. And that's just how I've played the game since then. I got it all. I don't want any of it.
Yeah. You realize the top of whatever you're going after, if it's not what you want, it's lonely. It is the amount of stress that you take on that is outside of just your job, just not feeling comfortable with what you're doing, is overwhelming.
Just not liking it. Look, all we have in this world is time.
Yeah.
Right? And I believe that how we spend it is the most important question that we have to answer every day. And I've been fortunate enough, and my life has been really challenging because of this. I've had, huge wins and just got the living shit kicked out of me. I've gone from, writing a screenplay on a palatial home on a beach in Costa Rica to selling a surfboard to buy fucking groceries.
Yeah.
I shit you not.
That's crazy.
But I have, since that realization and since walking away from the full-time practice of law, I have been able to get up every day and do what I want to do. And that doesn't mean sit on the couch and eat fucking Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
Right, and watch cartoons. That means getting up and doing something that I'm invested in, that I believe in, that I'm passionate about, that has a future, that that I can make money doing. I try to connect all of those dots, because for me, if it's just money,
Playing the wrong game.
it does not motivate me to get out of bed in the morning. If I'm passionate about it, the money will take care of itself.
Absolutely. You said it, man. That's the measure of success right there. If you can get up every single day and know exactly what you're doing, are intentional about it, and are passionate about it, like, you've already won the game.
I agree.
Yeah. I say that's all of our young kids here. It's like, hey, don't chase the dollars. If you do that, man, like, you're going to get the dollars for sure, but you are going to lose some stuff along the way, and you're going to get there. And
Yeah, and you might find out that's not what you want, and that's going to be an important lesson to learn. The other thing is, and this is really difficult, sometimes it's difficult to find that thing, right? And I know a lot of young people, and I give this piece of advice all the time. They're not sure what they want, so they're not doing anything.
worst.
They're sitting around waiting to get struck by lightning or have that epiphany. And what I always say is, look, and this is how I landed in cannabis. I grew up around cannabis. I started smoking cannabis at a very young age. I always, I knew kids in that rural community that were really good at growing cannabis. And growing cannabis was one of those things always in the back of my mind, like, that would be something really cool to be good at.
Absolutely.
And life went on. But, take a look at the world around you. Take a look at what you're passionate about and what your skills are. And then make a decision. Make a decision.
Yes.
And then execute. And then you go all in on that decision and run down that road as hard and as fast as you can. And when you get to wherever that road leads, you may find out that maybe this wasn't the perfect choice. But if you are in that position, you're going to have this body of work and this experience And that body of work and experience, worst case scenario, will just bring you closer to the next thing, whatever that is. And by the way, you're going to have something to talk about. You're going to have a story. You're going to have experiences, right? So when you're sitting down in the next interview for whatever the next thing is, and they're saying, gee, Billy, what have you been doing the last 10 years? Well, if you picked a thing and you ran down that road as hard as you could, I bet you've got a lot to talk about.
Hell yeah.
And I bet you're seasoned. And I bet you have valuable experience. You know, you've been out there. You familiar with the quote, man in the arena?
Yes.
Okay, that is my,
I think we have that around
that is my
here somewhere,
end
don't we?
all.
Yeah, it's framed in this office, dude.
Beginning, middle, and end. It is not the critic who counts.
It's a guy in the arena.
Man in the arena, marred by sweat and blood, who tries and fails again and again and again. And I'm making I'm really bastardizing this, but at the end, his place is not with those quiet and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat.
Yep.
And there's just no other way to live.
It's beautiful, man. It's the whole idea of doing, because a lot of people are just floundering in their 20s and like, I got to find something I'm passionate about. Like my dad did A, B, and C. Like, I don't want to be corporate, all that kind of stuff. It's like, you might not want to be, but the process of running down as hard and fast you can is going to transform you into a different person that actually has accomplished something. And even if that's not exactly what you wanted to do, or if it's way far off, you've built skills and you built things that you can translate into the things that you actually want to do. And that's the ticket, is developing the thing that's going to take you through life. Which
and the
is
self-knowledge. Like if you're not in the fire, if you're not in the arena, how are you learning about yourself? How are you forging character?
Mm-hmm.
How are you developing skills? You're not.
At all.
If you're just parked.
Yeah.
Or you're half-assing it. Or you're shuffling through. You're not getting any of that. And so, anyway, it's been I was very fortunate to have that experience at 24, 25 years old.
I bet.
It really changed things for me. And while this journey has been the cannabis journey, and I've done a lot of very difficult things, you know, jiu-jitsu black belt, you know, 5-time Pan American champion, Army Ranger, law school graduate, member of the New York State Bar. The cannabis journey has been by far the most difficult.
Really?
By far.
Let's jump into it, man. This has been a whirlwind over the past 10 years, I would imagine, in the cannabis industry, and it's just getting more complicated. More people are entering it. Like, there's now Wall Street money heavy behind all this stuff. It is celebrities are getting into the game. It's yeah. So talk to me about it, man. You started growing, and then you made a transition a couple years ago to
well,
retail.
Let's talk barriers to entry first.
Sure.
So when I started in my basement, I don't know, was it 14 years ago or whatever it was, where do you get the knowledge? Who do you go to? It was like a black art.
Yep.
Back then.
You got to know a guy.
Who knows a guy, who knows a guy, who knows a guy, right? And I'm a big DIY guy, so I just dove in and I was going to the hydro stores and talking to people and trying to tap into all the message boards. And of course, the problem with the message boards is everybody has an opinion, and no two opinions agree. So
who's valid?
Struck with all this conflicting information from medium to genetics to temperature and it just goes on and on and on. And I went through a very trying process of being self-taught over 5 years of really trying to figure out, how to grow cannabis. And eventually, through trial and error and conversations and message boards. I'd also like to give a shout out to Green Coast Hydro.
Okay.
Because they were a place that I started shopping, and they had some very good, simple, specific data that could point you in a direction. So I wasn't getting, 18 different pieces of conflicting information, and the guys behind the counter there really took an interest in me.
That's awesome.
And were super helpful, and that enabled me to really get my legs under me and grow. And then it was, the little project in the basement becomes a bigger project in the garage, becomes a bigger project that's taking over the whole house.
Yeah.
And back then, pounds were going for $4,000.
Sure.
You know, so you're
different
spending,
game.
25 units a month out of your house at, $4,000 a unit, and your costs are low, and it's real estate you're paying for anyway.
Yeah.
You can start to make some moves. And so I doubled down and get into a warehouse, double down from there, got into some greenhouse stuff and started expanding. And while that process was going on, an old friend of mine, Ruse, I found out he was cultivating as well. And, we started talking, sharing techniques, sharing staff, sharing genetics, sharing brokers, which is a real taboo. But we developed a really close relationship, and we trusted each other. We made each other better. And that was a really difficult thing in cannabis, was trusting anyone.
I'm sure.
You don't want anybody to know where your shop is. You don't want anybody to know who your connects are. You don't want anybody to know what your techniques are. And we did this thing. And, probably about 3 years ago, I had a 5-acre project out in the Mojave Desert. I was retrofitting 1,400 square foot double wide trailers into mobile automated hybrid grow houses.
That is awesome.
On the middle of the sand. It was a beautiful project. Thought that was where I was going to end up. And my good friend called me and said, hey, I've got a cultivation project in Long Beach licensed that we're trying to get licensed. I've got a retail project in Santa Ana trying to get licensed. I know you're a lawyer. You're also very good at, cannabis. I want you to partner with me.
Yeah.
And thank God he did, because I wouldn't have I would have had to go find that money.
Yeah.
And it would have been difficult. So, he had some access to capital that I didn't, and he brought me in as a partner. And we've been working together for the last 3 years, and it's been phenomenal. The Long Beach project fell apart, unfortunately. We were working on a merger with a Canadian entity that breached a promissory note for $1 million bucks and left us high and dry. That was a lot of fun.
That's brutal, man.
Tried to put that deal back together, couldn't quite pull it off, but then it was time to go to Santa Ana. And we opened Tropicana August 3rd of last year. Love our store, love our brand. We do things very differently from a lot of other shops. We've been extraordinarily successful in a short amount of time. We're, looking at second and third locations, and
awesome.
It's been amazing.
You guys have something special going on, man. It's a place that all of us shop. It's and I think Jeff was saying this to you earlier, is the quality of the employees that you have is dramatically different than most other shops. There is a massive gap between most weed shops and then the high end that actually take the client service experience as an experience, as opposed to just, I'm slinging cannabis, right? And to be able to go into a place, especially what you were saying earlier, is if you don't know a lot about weed, well, at that point, you're so lost. And if you don't have someone sitting down and explaining to you and taking the time to make sure that you understand what you're getting into and what your problems actually are, and assisting you with solving that, you're shooting in the dark. And when you're shooting in the dark with cannabis, it can turn you off. People who have those 55-year-olds that have never dug into it, all right, took a gummy, it's 25 milligrams, see you around. You're never getting back to that
they're
again.
having a bad experience. You're never going to see that customer again. You know, I mean, we did have a really substantial advantage in launching Tropicana and building that brand, because we were able to look at what everyone else was doing.
Sure.
Right?
Because you had some body of work.
Well, we could look at what the 18 shops in Santa Ana were doing already and what the shops in Long Beach were doing already. And that process enabled us to identify mostly what we thought they were doing wrong, some of what we thought they were doing right, and we made some decisions about what kind of store we wanted to have. We eliminated the waiting room. It's a non-functional, unnecessary space. You're giving up 20, 30% of your retail environment to a sterile environment where nothing gets done and people just get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Gone. We made an effort we don't give people an extensive questionnaire to come in the store. Those are intrusive and unnecessary. I don't like filling them out. No one likes filling them out. That takes away from the experience. So by eliminating those two things, we're already on a path to get you into the store as quickly and as comfortably as possible. Why cannabis retail up until now has violated every retail protocol that I'm aware of. It's like every other shop I see, it's like, okay, let's play a game. I'm going to keep you out of my store for as long as I possibly can, and once I get you in, I'm going to get you out of there as quickly as I can. Every other retail environment on planet Earth gets you in.
Stay as long as you like.
And encourages you to stay as long as you like. So that's how we run our store. And in terms of the staff, that's it. If you're in our shop, you're a guest in our home, right? Our staff needs to have an encyclopedic, sommelier level knowledge of the menu. They need to know how to present product. They need to answer questions. They need to be patient. They need to let people take as much time as they want. And, look, there's delivery out there. There are 18 other stores. How do you want to compete as a business? Interestingly, when I polled a lot of the retail shop owners that I know from my time in cannabis industry, every single one of them said they were competing on price point, which just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so we're all engaged in this race to the bottom. I mean, that's where that goes. So who wins that fight? The corporate shop with $1 billion market cap who can hemorrhage cash for 5 years and wring us all dry. So, we also decided very early on we weren't going to play that game. How are we going to compete? We're going to compete on the experience. We're going to compete on showing people what the Tropicana life is all about. We're going to compete on customer service. And, we've done that. Our numbers are incredibly robust for a shop that has been in our town for such a short amount of time.
With the level of competition.
Competing against 18 really well-established and savvy operators, and it is because we provide an experience that no one else does.
There's a MedMen in Santa Ana, too, isn't there?
Is there?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody goes there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know that there's one there.
Yeah, there is one there. I've been there,
But Santa Ana is apparently very cannabis friendly.
Yeah,
right?
Look, we've got some great,
some
great shops, and I'm not going to call out their names because I'm not in the business of, promoting my competition.
Do you want me to do it too?
No, please don't. But there are some great stores there, and there are some savvy operators, and there's some people, some great brands and people doing some good things. But we welcome that competition, and we level up every day, and we take it very seriously. And I live, I run that store with my partner the same way that I run my life and I approach everything else, where it's just, I show up every day asking the question, how can I be better? How can we be better? How can we improve this experience? And I love it.
Yeah.
And it's I don't want to say life or death errand, but to me it's a life or death errand, and that speaks to the passion.
Well, if you approach it with that level of seriousness, the employees see that too, and that is what it is. It's like, hey, people can have the cannabis delivered directly to their door. You guys have to understand that. That's what we're working with. That level of convenience is powerful. So what do we do differently, and how do we do that? If we're not, racing to the floor, how do we make this experience memorable, something that people are going to come back to and realize that, hey, it's worth getting in my car and driving down there.
Yeah, another thing we do, we do it with our return policy as well. We accept returns. I don't think any other shops really do. We model it after Nordstrom's.
Yeah.
And to facilitate that, I drafted a little one-page memorandum for all our vendors that sign them up to our customer service and return policy.
That's cool.
So all the vendors will accept returns for defective product. that's really important too. So you just you try to do this stuff as well as you can, and I'm really, really grateful to I've had this journey and this experience, and have my partner Ruse bring me into his his business and really just turn me loose to create the brand and the and the ethos and the colors and the logos, and get out in front of marketing that, and the developing the social team and building the culture. I'm a creative. As I said, I was a screenwriter.
Sure.
And when I left that industry, it was the most amazing experience, and then it was so gut-wrenchingly kicking the balls, unsatisfying at the end of it to have created all this material that's just sitting on shelves.
Sure.
And it's never seen the light of day. And
as someone who's creative, man,
and for the business changed after the writer's strike. So, you know, I sold, you know, all my material, original work on pitch. Now it's all sequel, prequel, remake, and I'm not getting those jobs. And I'm just sitting there going like, what the, it's fucking like 14 years of my life. Like, did I even do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a pile of money, and I traveled, and I had a great experience, but there's nothing to show for it except this fucking CSI episode and this shitty movie that I didn't even get a screen credit on.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay with that, you know? It really, and then trying to figure out, you know, who I was if I wasn't a writer and what I was going to do next. And now I get to pull in to this beautiful pink and green building, Tropicana, that my partner and I, you know, created out of thin air. You know, this thing didn't exist, and it's there for the world to see. You know, something like 40,000 cars pass us a day. We have an incredible following on social media. This, you know, we have staff. It's like a living, breathing thing that exists in space that we created, and we get to, you know, recreate and develop every day. And that's been, I mean, more satisfying than I can even give voice to. And
I'm with you, man.
Incredibly
it's
grateful.
The process of building something, creating something, and seeing that thing flourish is like, I'm not passionate about insurance. I'm not, and I don't think a ton of people are passionate. You get those folks. I'm passionate about my company and what we do.
Sure.
And then like the folks that I get to work with every single day, like that creation of the culture, creation of the brand, creation of the platform they're trying to build, like that creativity, especially for a creative person, like that's the most fulfilling part of like what I get to do every single day.
I get it.
It sounds like you're playing the same game, man.
I get it. I mean, that's I'm not a middle.
Yeah.
I don't really like middles. Because they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I just, you know, and I'm being a little sarcastic, but, you know, sorry, you know, if my agent or manager or anybody I used to work with is listening, but, you know, I like to make things.
Yeah.
I like to do things. I like to create things. And I find it satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell other people's stuff. I don't want to work on other people's shit.
You got your thing, man.
Just don't.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't. And I've been fortunate enough to, you know, have found a way to walk that path. I'm 52 now. I started when I was about 25. So I've had a pretty good run of being a rebellious, independent, to thine own self be true, man in the arena kind of journey.
I love it, man.
What more could you ask for?
That's so cool.
Right?
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I want to talk about the product, right? You mentioned this earlier, is especially being in someone who knows the growing game.
Right.
And people are always trying to hit you up like, carry our product. And I think this was like a year and a half ago. And then it happened with Lowell's too. Like there's a lot of folks doing some...
Naughty Lowell.
Yeah.
Naughty.
Yeah.
We kicked him out of the store.
You did.
After that. Look, I think Lowell's a great brand. They developed it extraordinarily well. I have all the respect in the world for what they do. But, you know, my partner and I made a decision when we launched our licensed business that we just walked away from the gray market and from the black market. And that's a really difficult thing to do because you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Yeah. I mean, a lot of money
thick
on the
margins.
table. You know, our off-site counsel tells us that, you know, we're the only operators he knows that don't even have a pinky toe.
Whoa.
In the black market. So, you know, shit went down with Cushy Punch. Goodbye. Shit went down with Lowell. Goodbye. Nothing against them, but that's just not, one, it's a liability.
Yep.
You know, if you're putting unlicensed product into the licensed stream of commerce, that strikes me as a products liability suit waiting to happen.
Absolutely.
For which the retailers selling that product are going to be part of. So I went back to both of those companies and said, look, get me with your corporate counsel. Let's figure out how we're going to negotiate the liability issue. You guys get shit squared away. We'll talk. And none of them wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So we walked away from those brands, and I think it's the right thing to do. Is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of other brands out there. And, you know, you're curious about what we look for in making those decisions. Authenticity.
Okay.
For me is really, really important, probably because I have always had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. And as I said, this journey has been really hard for me. And I felt like, you know, the decade plus of work, of real work that it took to be in this position and, you know, be developing Tropicana as a brand and an entity. I take that seriously. So I tend to gravitate towards people who share those values and have that experience. So I'm looking for authentic brands with authentic operators who were around before Prop 64, who are doing what they're doing because they're passionate for it. You know, if you're a guy who spent $250,000 to get your distro up because it's the green rush, and, you know, you got a bunch of garbage brands that you're white labeling in your distro, and you're out there trying to get the fuck out of my store.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you, you know? So authenticity is important. Quality is important. Obviously, quality and price point. You know, things need to be priced properly. The quality needs to be commensurate with what the price is. I don't try to catch lightning in a bottle. I'm not a fad guy. You know, we talked about this a little bit before. We don't buy any celebrity brands. Why? Because celebrities don't grow fucking weed.
Yeah.
Right? They're celebrities. This is a shortcut. It is a lack of imagination. I'm going to put Celebrity X's name on my bottle. Now everyone will know what it is. How about this? How about you do the hard work of creating a real, authentic brand instead of cutting a check to use someone's name?
Yeah.
I don't like shortcuts. So we don't do that. We look for authenticity. We look for quality. We look for price point. Another issue is vertical integration. You know, I try to avoid brands that are white labeling, right? It's not completely unavoidable, you know, because there are some quality brands that are outsourcing, you know, their oil or outsourcing their flower, and we do carry some of them, but I have a strong preference. We have a strong preference towards vertical integration, which means the company that's selling the flower actually grows the flower.
Sure.
The company that's selling the oil actually makes the oil. And there are a lot of brands out there that do that, and we carry quite a bit of them. Female-owned and operated, that's important. Women are underrepresented in the industry. I could say the same thing for minority-owned and operated. You know, our store, and I just put up a social media post about this yesterday in response to the recent tragedy in Minneapolis and the protests around that. We strive for diversity in our workforce. We hire minorities and people of color. We develop those talents. We put them in leadership positions. We pay people a living wage. And I look for companies that share those values.
That's
as
awesome.
well. And I honestly believe, look, I support the protests. I support the statements. I do not support the police state that's murdering people of color at all. I'm disgusted by it. I don't want to talk about the looting or the arson. I want to talk about the violence at the hands of people who are charged to protect and serve. But I think if every company held those three principles really close to them, diversity, providing opportunity for people of color and minorities in the form of leadership positions and paying a living wage, if every company on earth did that, what would the world look like right now?
Dramatically different.
Do you think we would have what's going on in the world right now No, we wouldn't. You know, we got a world full of fucking Walmarts.
That's
where
the
everybody's trying to pay people as little as they possibly can, all in the name of fucking shareholder value. And, you know, I mean, Walmart's a federally subsidized business. It's disgusting. And all those companies are disgusting. And I don't want to turn this into a political diatribe. But anyway, my point is I look for companies that share our principles and our values. So, you know, those are some of the things we look for. We like to have a well-rounded menu. You know, we talked about this a little bit before the show, flower, concentrate, carts, vapes are still, the three prime movers in the industry. So, we work very hard at having the most robust and interesting top shelf in all those categories and mid shelf. And especially now with the economic downturn and all the struggles, we've made an effort to open up, lower cost or value options for our clientele. That being said, I also believe the future of the industry is in ratioed cannabis formulations that are available to or functional for 100% of the population, not just the people who like to get high. And so we have to spend time developing we have to have the right lineup of tinctures. We have to have the right lineup of drinks, of creams, of bath bombs,
everything.
Of tablets.
Yeah.
And even though that's a very small part of our sales right now, it's growing. And if you don't have those products on the shelf, you can never...
or aren't educated on how they work.
Right, and you can never have those consumers, and you can never grow in that way. So, really long answer. But,
no, it's a great answer, man. That's perfect.
Those are the things that we watch out for.
Awesome. What are some up-and-coming brands?
Oh, boy. Well, I'd like to talk about some of our stalwarts first.
Sure.
that are doing extraordinarily well. Plug and Play.
Okay.
Vape company. They've really done a great job of catching lightning in a bottle. They have really test really high, really great flavor. Their pods hit really well, great battery, really well marketed, and run by really good people. We do extraordinarily well with them. 710 Labs for concentrate.
710 Labs.
Probably the industry. Yeah. I would absolutely say the industry standard. Unfortunately, they have been impacted by the protests.
Sure.
And I understand their facilities got kind of turned upside down. So
That
I'm
sucks.
hoping they recover quickly and get back in the game. Flower wise, it's interesting. It gets kind of boutique. We just took in a new brand called Green Dragon that's testing extraordinarily high that people feel really good about. We're carrying Fresh Baked, which is, coming out of Long Beach. They were growing out of the Circle. Their quality is really high, high caliber.
You're still carrying Alien Labs?
We danced with Alien Labs for a little while, and we may dance with them again. Of course, they're a Connected brand, and Connected is a retailer that competes with us.
They're in Long Beach, too,
in Santa Ana. Yeah,
Okay.
Connected's a great company. It's a great brand. They've done a great job of establishing their footprint, but I do compete with them as a retailer, and I make an effort to not carry any retailer store brands because I don't like running ads for my competition.
Pretty smart.
On my shelf.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's crazy. There's still an attitude in our industry where, there's room enough for everyone and we should all get along. And while that may be true, and I certainly don't want to pick any fights or create any animosity, I do take the competition for market share seriously, and I'm not going to do anything I think that, gives someone an advantage.
Absolutely.
Over us. House brands are great. I don't think I'll call my house brand Tropicana.
Yeah.
I think I'll call it something else and hopefully get it on all my competitors' shelves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without creating a problem.
Super cool. Where do you see, so this industry is very young, right? The craft brewery industry, and these are red. Like one is alcohol, one has lots of medical benefits. So they're different. However, they are from, I would say, mainstream, looked at in a very similar way.
Right.
In regards to, hey, these are recreational drugs, alcohol and cannabis, both of those things. So this is still in its infancy. Where do you see this going over the next 5 or 10 years?
It's interesting. I think that most people really, if you really look at it, they use alcohol medicinally.
That's true. That's a very
the word
sad
recreation is a little funny, right? Yeah, we're using alcohol, or some people use cannabis to recreate, to go have a good time. But what is that really? You're altering your brain chemistry. You're changing your natural state of being to create a pleasant feeling to, in the case of alcohol, remove some inhibition. In the case of cannabis, to be more creative, better whatever sensation you're going for. So
Sure.
I think the classifying it as recreational or medicinal, for me, I think it's all medicinal in one form or another. Where do I see the industry going? I have thoughts about where we'd like to take our brand, which I guess tie to where the industry is going. We know from Colorado that we're not creating more stoners,
That's for sure.
right?
Yeah.
So if you like to use cannabis in that way to alter your consciousness, right? That's X percentage of the population. It's not going up. It's not going down.
Those people are going to do it no matter what.
Making cannabis
See what it
legal
is.
is not impacting that at all. So that market share is there. And the question is, where is it going? You know, I've had I would say a powerful personal experience with the plant. You know, I started smoking at a really young age, an embarrassingly young age. And I was daily all through high school.
Sure.
Was still an athlete, but got to run with both crowds, the burnouts and the jocks. And,
Yeah.
but around law school, it's really stopped working for me. Like cannabis, it started to give me anxiety, having the opposite effect, just keeping me up at night and making me think about, did I do this? What was something I said in 7th grade? I don't know. It's, it's ridiculous,
You
right?
don't need that kind of anxiety.
Not fun. So I stopped. For the most part, I mean, occasionally, a little bit of that is dosage dependent, and I dabble here or there. I never got completely disconnected from it. If I'm in a blunt circle, I'm going to hit it. Let's just put it
For
that
sure.
way. I'm just not going to hit it 8 times until it's all the way gone and be the last man standing.
Yeah.
Those days are over.
Yeah.
No longer the last man standing unless it's on the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it's on. Anyway. One of the most amazing experiences I had opening this retail was before we opened, I probably took 1,000 brand meetings personally.
That's awesome.
I needed to get an overview of what was out there in the industry, and it was an incredibly eye-opening experience. And I have this same feeling every time I walk on the floor of our store. The amount of different options, different ways to intake the plant, the ratioed solutions, the microdose solutions, the drinks, the gummies, the cookies, the brownies, the fruit leather, the tablets, the tinctures, the balms, the creams. It's just, I really I walk into our store and I'm like, this is, our store is like Willy Wonka had a love child with Mary Jane.
That's
And
perfect.
it's so fucking cool. I can't even get my head around it. And so I really feel like the microdose solutions, I'm 5 milligrams or less for me, with 15 to 20 of CBD at the same time.
Perfect.
In a whole plant, sugar-free beverage, or a piece of fruit leather or whatever it is. I do that every day. I start that treatment at an hour or two before I'm clocking out of the office, and I'll have another little glass of. I mostly drink my weed, which is also
That's awesome.
so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll have a little cup of that with dinner, and I'm never really high. I'm not really altered. I just get a little anxiety relief, a little separation from the day. I'm a little more relaxed, and it reduces some inflammation, a little pain relief from all the training that I do in my busy schedule. It helps me be present for my family, and it helps me sleep at night. And I also use the
That's some
creams.
benefit right there.
I mean,
That's a ton,
look, so
man.
here's the thing. I think when you use cannabis that way, I would argue it's performance enhancing,
Absolutely.
which gets to, cannabis enhances life, another companion brand to Tropicana. But I think that's where the industry is going. My vision for Tropicana is I don't want to serve just only the 15% or whatever it is of the community that, likes to get stoned.
Yeah.
I want to serve 100% of my community. Please give me the person who takes too much ibuprofen and is fucking up their liver, or the man on Klonopin for anxiety, or the person taking Ambien for sleep, or the person hooked on Norco for pain relief. All these over-the-counter and prescription medications, so many of them you can substitute a healthy positive, microdosed cannabis remedy for that's not addictive, that's not toxic, that's not hurting you,
Doesn't have gnarly side effects.
that makes you better,
Yeah.
right? It's improving you, which gets to the whole performance enhancing thing. And I know I have a smile on my face right now.
No, I love it, man.
Because I have had this experience, and I've done my best to share this experience and create this experience with other people. So by all means, we're going to work as hard as we can to take care of our flower consumers and take care of our concentrate consumers and take care of our vape consumers. And we love them, and we love that part of the business, and this stuff's amazing, right? But over here, come here, try. My mother-in-law now takes tincture
That is awesome.
every day to help her with. She was in a catastrophic car accident and has like a semi-mangled ankle and foot.
Jeez.
You know, I've provided edibles to people with dependencies on narcotic painkillers who have been able to get off of those. I've helped people with anxiety and sleep with these remedies. I've helped myself with these remedies, and they are they just really improve your quality of life, and they provide that same level, of relief with nothing but upside, no downside.
Yeah.
No, I want to take more the next day. No habit.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just life changing.
Performance enhancing for sure.
Yeah.
It's there's so much ignorance surrounding cannabis, and there's so much stigma around it because media has just portrayed anybody who does it, and a lot of politicians do the same thing.
Well,
it's like, hey, anybody who takes part in weed, morons, burnouts, stoners, all that stuff. I mean,
and really even more insidious than that, though. I mean, look, the cannabis prosecutions, drug prosecutions in general are society's effort at exerting social control over a perceived undesirable segment of the population. I mean, you go back to Nixon. I mean, we can go way back to the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, but let's just pick up with Tricky Dick Nixon, that fucking asshole.
Tricky Dick Nixon.
I mean, what he did with the DEA and with putting cannabis as Schedule I is worse than fucking Watergate.
Yeah. It's weaponized, man.
And why'd they do it? They did it to go after the Black Panthers and fucking hippies.
Yeah. People taking away
It
from
was
their
a
war
time
effort.
of social unrest, and now we've played that record forward. And I hate to walk back to the present political situation, but I'm carrying one brand like now, which I would like to talk about. It's called Farmer and the Felon. It's from ABX. They give proceeds to the Last Prisoner Project. They're trying to get the 40,000 people that are incarcerated wrongfully for nonviolent cannabis offenses out of jail. Hello.
40,000?
Over 40,000, right? Well,
that's so unreasonable.
Those laws have been so disproportionately enforced against minorities, that it's laughable. So we're still using this ridiculous law that should not be on the books to incarcerate people that shouldn't be incarcerated, that have it hard enough. That
the problem is so exacerbated when you take someone who is nonviolent, just selling, out of the household. You've now created a major problem.
How about just smoking? They're not just locking up dealers, dude. Just back in the day, you get caught with a joint in your pocket.
That's brutal. That gets on your record. It's impossible to get a job.
It's you're out. Yeah. I mean, look, we've incarcerated, generations of African American males around cannabis law, drug laws in general, and it's that these things are all connected, and those things need to change as well. It's not just wrong; it's fucking evil.
Yeah,
is what it is. It is fucking evil, and and it's sort of mind numbing to think that I am sitting inside a pink and green building on the corner of Edinger and Grand with this Willy Wonka met Mary Jane display of every cannabis product you can imagine under the sun, and I'm properly licensed and the police wave when they drive by.
Yeah.
Yet 40,000 plus people are in jail
Go figure.
for doing what is probably a much smaller version of the thing that I can legally do right now. It's
silly.
It's offensive.
Yeah.
It's offensive. But you know, there's a lot of, you know, what's happening that's offensive
For sure.
and that needs to change.
It will, man.
Well,
It's gonna
you
take
know,
some time.
I think so. You know, I talked to, did a little interview with Rocco from Henry's, which is another
I've
great
met
brand.
him. He is a phenomenal person.
He really is, and Henry's is a phenomenal brand as well. They're you know, almost single-handedly holding together authentic Mendocino cannabis culture.
Oh, that's cool.
They're sun-grown, sustainable, environmentally responsible, green, clean, and great people. I toured their farm when I was up north for the last Hall of Flowers. Rocco invited my partner and I up. That was an amazing experience. And Rocco and I did a little interview for Tropicana TV on Sunday. And cannabis is legal because of activism, right? We have that's why we are where we are right now. So there's a connection there, and the people who are successful in this industry that played a role in that have that experience. We know about community building. We know how to deal with, you know, congressmen and municipalities and
grassroots movements.
We know how to do it, and I call on our industry to look at what's happening today and instill those corporate principles that we were talking about. And another thing we can talk about in terms of affecting change is where we spend our money.
That's for sure. I was going to allude to that when you talked about Walmart. It's like, hey, as the consumer, we're the ones that are allowing all these companies continue to exist, not only exist, to thrive.
Yeah, I agree. And the political system is broken. We all know it's broken. You know, you've got Citizens United, which enables, you know, unfettered corporate funding of campaigns, right?
Yeah.
We've done a pretty good job of destroying the middle class and funneling resources to the oligarchs and the, you know, top 1% of the population. So we're a functioning corporate oligarchy. So what do? Really difficult to fix all the things that are wrong with the system. But if we run our companies in an ethical and responsible and progressive way, and we spend our dollars in an ethical and responsible way, those are two things we can do completely outside of the system that can have an amazing power for change. And I think we've seen, you know, small examples of it with, you know, deplatforming. As much as I'm not for deplatforming, when advertisers decide to stop supporting someone's voice because it's offensive or inconsistent with their message, that person goes away.
Yep.
Right? I would love to see that from consumers. You know, let's not go to Walmart anymore. Let's stop spending money from companies that are you know, leeches on our system that aren't really producing, you know, anything of real value. Let's spend locally. Let's spend responsibly. Let's let our voices be heard in that way. And that's you know, that's achievable without, you know.
Maybe we like our shit, man. We like our shit delivered right to our door from Amazon. We like stuff cheap. We like everything being made in China. Like, that is the problem. I really do think that companies who do share those values, they're going to be okay. And the reason why they're going to be okay is because, like you and like most companies that operate, they're passionate about their business. That will take you a long way. The problem is going back to consumers. Consumers want that. They want cheap shit. And they don't see the price that is actually paid for that cheap shit is so far away and so removed for them that unless that changes from the consumer first, it's...
Well, this is what I'm suggesting, is this is a movement. Look, at the end of the day, I don't believe that I have the capacity to change the world as an individual. Okay, I'm just going to lay that on the table.
Sure.
JP is not going to change the world. But what I can have an extraordinarily powerful impact on is what I like to call my hula hoop.
Yeah.
And that's where I spend my energy, right? So if I can run my company, with my partner, with those principles in mind, that's the experience that the people in my hula hoop are having. And I see that experience, influencing them and their choices. If I can, buy at the local farmer's market, or not make that Amazon purchase, or not go to Walmart, all these different things. If I can live my life, with integrity, if I can be kind and I can be generous, if I can take a serious interest in my fellow man and mentoring, if I can build a, robust and vibrant jiu-jitsu and yoga community, next door to my shop that crosses over, these are all things that I can do, that are within my power to do inside my hula hoop. And I think that if we all focused on taking care of our immediate sphere and conducting our affairs within that immediate sphere consistent with the principles that we're discussing, I think the ripple through effect of that could be incredibly powerful. It's just like if you have I'm overwhelmed all the time. I got more to do than I can ever get done every day. There are days that I am so upside down, I'm just sitting at my desk, and I don't even know what to do next, right? It's that, there's just an avalanche of shit everywhere. Great problem to have, right? I mean, that means...
Better than the alternative,
for
sure,
right,
yeah.
Because there's things going on in my life, so I'm not complaining. But, you just have to sit down and write it all down and organize it and go, okay, I can only do what I'm doing right now.
Be at peace with
What's
that.
the most important thing? What is it? Jocko, who I'm a bit of a fan of.
Hell
what does he say? It's like organize and prioritize. I know I've got it all fucked up, but anyway, he talks about that. Like, get it all down.
Figure out what you do first.
First things first, and you just start banging it out. And I think if we did that in our lives within that hula hoop, and we prioritized and we took care, if everyone took care of their little picture, the big picture would take care of itself.
I've been saying that for 5 years, man. Yeah. Applied consistency within your domain of competence. There's nothing sweet. That's like the moral obligation that everybody should have. So as opposed to going out and saying, hey, we need large social change, you can't scale that way. What you do is you scale it. What can you control? What's in your sphere of influence? And do it that way. Start small. What you're going to do, and kind of to your point earlier, like when you start a job, even if you're not passionate about it, you're going to become something different by the time you figure out you don't love that job.
Yep.
Same kind of deals. Like, go solve little problems. Like, get your family in order. Yep. Get your family in order. Get your relationships in order with your friends.
Now we're going into a little Jordan Peterson territory now.
Fuck yeah, JP. I love him, dude.
Be careful. Pretty soon they're going to be saying we're alt-right, bro.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Crazy. It's so simple, and it makes so much sense. Like, that's the big problem is people don't want to do that. They don't want to wait to go through that process of transforming into something that can actually change the world.
Here's the thing: everybody wants everything right now, right?
Ooh,
and they're incredibly impatient. They don't want to do the work. But if anybody who's listening and wants something right now, let me let you know a little secret here. When you get it, you won't give a fuck.
Yeah.
What you'll be thinking about is the journey. And you're going to set down that thing, and then you're going to be thinking about what's next. So, the journey is the motherfucking reward.
100%.
That is the deal.
That's it.
It's the trip. It's not the destination.
The work is never done, man.
The work is the reward.
Yeah.
I hate, and look, we all like to accomplish things, right? I'm happy that we got Tropicana open and it exists in real space. So I'm not trying to diminish that, right? Because if it didn't happen, it would suck.
And you guys had a celebration party for it.
Yeah,
but
we
what's
did.
next,
And wait till the 1 year, bro.
Let's
coming
go.
Up.
I will be there.
Microdose solutions for everyone.
Let's go.
But it is like any time I've achieved something, that it doesn't even matter how long I've worked for it. Yeah, there's absolutely a moment where you feel good about it, But it really is about the journey. It's about the people you're working with. It's about getting up, and every day and solving those problems and working through things. And it's like, for me, it's like within hours, days, if not hours, I'm already thinking about the next thing or what we need to do next or how can we make it better. And it just doesn't end. And so when you realize that there is no destination ever, the destination is worm food, right? It is birth on one end and worm food on the other. And we're all born and we're all going to be worm food. So what are you doing in between?
Loving the work, man.
And that never ends. It just never ends.
Yeah, pass the torch to the next generation.
Right?
Keep going.
Yeah.
It's shared experience, man. I'm a firm believer of what we're trying to do here at Whiteboard is if every single one of these people can develop themselves personally, our company is dramatically better.
Right.
That's what it is. And that's the reward for me is when I see like part of my team start developing themselves and especially for younger guys, like growing up and taking on more responsibility. Like that is the most rewarding thing by far. It's better than closing a large account. It's better than all that. Because that person is now going to contribute to like what Whiteboard's trying to do tenfold.
But you're living it too. I mean, this space that you guys have here, you're San Diego based, but you have this, big crazy house out here in OC, and like you don't have to do a podcast, do you? No. Why are you doing it?
We love it, man. It's
Fuck
part
yeah,
of it.
right?
Why not?
You're right. You're investing in your life. You're doing something you're passionate about that you're not required to do. And that I want to comment a little bit about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Too.
Let's
in
do
that
it, man.
regard. One thing I always look for in people, and this is really important, is I look for people that are doing something with their free time, the non-work time, that are doing something with their free time that is extraordinarily difficult, requires a level of risk, and that they are not required to do.
Yeah.
That is unnecessary. Jiu-jitsu is a great example of that. Jiu-jitsu is not compulsory. It's also brutally difficult and challenging and ego smashing,
especially at the beginning, dude.
And humbling,
Yeah.
and painful, and rewarding and triumphant. And so I don't mean to paint this negative picture, but you're right. You show up on day one as a white belt, and the other 6 white belts that have been getting the living shit kicked out of them for the next 3 months. You're fresh meat. You're just getting thrown to the fucking dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have never met a higher percentage of high character people in any other environment than jiu-jitsu.
I can get behind that.
And why? Here's why. Because this is a bunch of people who have something else inside of them that after their 8 or their 10-hour or their 12-hour day, they're going to go drive to this other place. They're not just going to go sit on the couch and knock back a 12-pack and, watch Donald Trump.
I've earned my beers.
Shit.
Yeah.
No, they're going to go and they're going to go do 2 hard hours on the mat because it makes them a better person and it enriches their experience and forges their character.
That's what you just said right there. Is that forging of the character is what jiu-jitsu is.
I've seen it over and over and over again, and it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It can be, it can be any number of other things. But I think that's really important. It's a great sort of short test or way to look at things. I've been fortunate enough to pull some of my jiu-jitsu family into almost every project.
That's super cool.
I've worked on. Right now I've got a guy that isn't able to coach or train because of what's going on with COVID. I brought him in as a driver, and
that's awesome.
And now we train together at the studio cell space privately, and we still get it in, and it's great having him around. And I don't have to think about what he's doing.
No,
ever.
The quality of person.
I don't have to think about one. I have to think about him getting robbed because that's not.
Yeah.
2, I don't have to worry about him stealing money. I don't have to worry about him showing up on time. I don't have to worry about if he's looking out for the company or if he's speeding or if he's not. I don't have to worry about any of it.
He's passed the test.
Because I know him.
Yeah.
He's already walked through. I've watched him walk through fire.
Yeah.
And that's
so valuable.
That's pretty cool.
It really is cool. That's really funny. You just said you don't have to worry about getting robbed. Those protests that were going on or supposed to go on at South Coast Plaza, one of the drop-off points was at my gym. And so Felipe and about like 7 or 8 Brazilian black belts are out there like, hey, probably not a good idea to show up there. But they had to do that.
Yeah, they did. Look, when Trump put out his tweet, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, I thought it was horrible and repugnant and absolutely the wrong message. And just as a matter of legal principle,
he doesn't pull.
By the way, in American jurisprudence, we don't shoot people over property theft, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen unless they come into your own home and your life is in danger. Then you are allowed to shoot. But if you're stealing a fucking TV, guess what? We don't shoot those people. It's just how it works. So I just got to get that off my chest.
Hell yeah, man.
But standing in front of your business with a bunch of your homies as a deterrent, I applaud that.
Absolutely.
You're within your rights to do that. I'm glad they did it. I saw pictures of, what was done to 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu.
So sad,
in
man.
Long Beach. And it is heartbreaking. But I also understand, right? Look, and this will be a pretty controversial comment, I'm sure. But if we look at history, like these people that don't understand the looting and the arson, you're not paying attention. What we're seeing right now, to my mind, is not that fundamentally different than the Boston Tea Party.
Sure.
Taxation without representation. We're getting fucked. We don't have a voice. We're throwing your shit in the fucking harbor.
Yeah.
It's not that different than the French Revolution, when the people needed to overthrow the monarchy and there was blood in the streets. It's not that different from what the Bolsheviks did to the Romanovs in Russia, right? History is full of examples of oppressed people with no opportunity and no political voice getting fed up and fucking shit up.
Yeah.
Well, why are we surprised?
There's a lot of pent-up anger, man.
Why are we surprised? We shouldn't be surprised. And while I'm not advocating, arson or violence or looting as a solution, I'm not mystified by it. I'm not surprised by it. And anyone who is, I think, has their head either in the sand or up their fucking ass.
Yeah. It's it's one of the things that I've seen through this is like, obviously the looting and the violence is the worst. And it should not be done. It is not a good mechanism to get where you want to go. But the amount of pent-up anger, which is justified to have, that's hard to control.
I get it.
If you see a bunch of cops getting away with stuff, and it's not even a bunch, if you see cops getting away with stuff where they shouldn't be, like, they have immunity. I just heard this the other day. They have some legal immunity.
Yeah. Police have immunity. They can't be prosecuted. But look at this. There's a comment about bad apples, right? And I think people really misconstrue that. When you say a bad apple spoils the whole bunch, right? That means if the bad apple sits in the bunch, it infects the rest of the bunch. And you actually have to pull the bad apple out to preserve the good apples. Well, guess what they didn't do in Minneapolis? That guy had, I think, 5 other.
Exactly.
And if I get this wrong, come to my shop and yell at me.
Hey,
sorry, paraphrasing, right? But he had multiple issues, and yet he's still there. And now how does that end? With him on someone's neck with his hand in his pocket, singing a fucking show tune.
Killing
it's one of the most
someone.
offensive videos I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
Just disgusting. So, look, let me tell you a story. I had a wonderful dog that got shot by Long Beach PD.
Jeez.
Twice in the head.
That sucks.
In the park across the street from my loft. The dog lived because she was a bad bitch. Like her daddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was a writer at the time, and I went after that cop and Long Beach PD with everything I had. And here's what they did. The first thing they did was they went after my key witness, who was an illegal Mexican immigrant, and threatened him with deportation and got him not to testify. They canvassed the neighborhood, got to all my witnesses, got them to change statements. They wouldn't let me meet with the cop. I mean, it was like every roadblock they could put up to that being a fair and just, disposition of the issue was put up.
Entirely insulated.
It was crazy, and I'm sitting in the middle of it. And on top of that, I'll take it a step farther. That loft I had was in a really rough neighborhood, barrio neighborhood. A lot of shootings, a lot of gun violence, drugs, the whole thing. My partner at the time was playing fetch with the dogs in the park across the street at like 5:30 in the morning, because there's no one out at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
You can let them off leash and play ball. Those gang cops had just served a warrant across the street, and they didn't see the girl. They just saw the two dogs running in their direction, and they just drew down and started popping caps. Well, guess what? And I wrote a piece about this. I was in the OC Weekly years ago. It's like, dogs don't get shot in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
So in addition to the cover-up and the oppression around that case, the reason those dogs got shot is because I was in a very poor neighborhood. And I believe the police made an assumption that those dogs were poor dogs, therefore they didn't have legal rights or recourse. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And they could shoot them with impunity, and ultimately there would be no consequences.
That's scary, man.
What they didn't know is they happen to be the dogs of a person who's a lawyer, who has resources, who was going to stir up a fucking hornet's nest. And I did. I was on the Channel 4 News. I was on the front page of the OC Weekly. I went after him as hard as I possibly could.
Did anything happen?
Affairs complaint. Ultimately had to drop the suit because they knocked out all our witnesses by forcing them to change their statements or threatening them. But we did get a pretty serious internal affairs complaint through. The dog survived and was around for a long time after that. It was a pretty dark chapter. But as a white person, right, I can't pretend to understand the black or the minority experience, right?
Yeah.
It's just not my experience. But having that experience and seeing how the police behave in a neighborhood like that,
with the assumptions that are
and
going
then
in
how
there.
they try to cover that up at the end, I think gave me at least a taste or a whiff of what that felt like. And God, I got to tell you, I knew I was training jiu-jitsu then. I was probably like a pretty mean blue belt at that point in time. And I knew someone who knew the cop that shot my dog.
Yeah.
He was a riot cop guy. And I was like, hey, man, get this guy a message for me. You tell him I will meet him in the police gym, and we can go 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And if he wins, I drop it all.
I love it.
And if I win,
Quit.
I drop it all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He didn't want any part of
Yeah.
it. Anyway,
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I would have loved to have gotten
It is, you hit it on the head, man. I think it is one of the things that if you are operating as a police officer in lower income neighborhoods, the risk is higher for the most part.
For
right?
sure.
If you're in Beverly Hills, the amount of crime that happens there is significantly less. The problem is a lot of these cops are so dramatically untrained. I mean, have you met, what is his name? It's Bob. I forget his last name. He's a cop on the Irvine PD. I was talking to him about it. About everything that happened with George Floyd, and it's he continues to preach like the problem here, like, might not be racism. Could it definitely be? Absolutely. It's just significantly untrained.
I'm not buying it. Look,
they could be. Here's the deal: is there's still.
I'm all for training. I think every cop should be a purple belt.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree. But look at that video.
It's
the guy is handcuffed on the ground. And you're kneeling on his neck while he's crying for his life and his mother.
Breathe. Yeah.
That is, you'll never convince me that that's not institutional racism. There's no fucking way that guy's doing that to a white stockbroker.
Yeah.
It's not going to fucking happen. It's a classic example of what I felt like in Long Beach. There was a different operating system.
Yeah.
And that was totally unnecessary. And I get...
There's a different operating system.
I get what you're saying. I'm all for training. And, I don't know, maybe if the guy did jiu-jitsu, maybe he'd be a better person and have more respect for humanity.
That's more what it is.
And not behave that way.
Yep.
But that guy deserves everything he gets.
Probably
And
more,
I don't
man.
have I have less than a shred of sympathy.
I totally agree with you. I think that was all 4 of those guys, man.
Yeah,
all 4 of
I
them.
agree.
Which I think 3 of them just got charged,
Yeah, I heard there was something happening,
which is
today
great.
with
Like
that.
when I saw it was only one guy, I was like, this is the fucking problem. This is why anger's out there.
But here's what's interesting, right? So if you're a criminal,
yeah.
right, and you got 4 guys in a car, and you come up to rob the bank,
Got a bunch
and
of
only
accessories.
one guy goes in, they're all
Oh,
going to jail that
for
day if they get
sure.
caught.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yep.
Yet again, how long did it take to arrest that guy? Way too fucking long.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get those other mooks?
Weeks.
Way too long.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, so it's a different set of rules. There's a different operating system with police officers depending on what community you're in. And look, I don't disagree, right? Risk is higher in other areas. But I will say this, and I know this because I'm highly trained,
Yeah.
right? I served. I do Muay Thai. I do Jiu-Jitsu. I train. I do it often. I keep my knife very, very, very sharp, right? I am
Yeah.
ready for anything at all times. I'm always competent. I do not get worked up or flustered
Yeah.
in challenging situations, right?
You don't need to.
I'm very relaxed. I'm very comfortable.
That
So
sets
even
the
that, like
tone.
you don't have to behave differently in that environment. What you do need to do is behave with a minimum standard of competence in all environments.
Yep.
Just because there's more risk or less risk doesn't mean you need to get your gun out any quicker.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to get rounds downrange any quicker. If shit hitting the fan, handle
Wherever
business.
you're
If
at,
it's
handle-
not,
yeah.
fucking relax.
Totally.
You know?
De-escalate situations, and that is that
You
is
know,
the
and I just want to say this too. I'm not a cop hater, man. I have friends on the force. I'm obviously you can't do jiu-jitsu. I'm not trained with a bunch of cops. I respect the job. I know it's really, really hard, but these guys have got to stop protecting each other.
That's for sure. They need to take
They need to change.
accountability. There is so. That's where the anger's coming from.
That's
If
right.
the police force had more accountability surrounding these events, this shit doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But because what we've done is just, all right, that passed. Like, don't know what really happened. There's an investigation. You're put on paid suspension. You're like, this guy gets a vacation after he just murdered someone.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of people angry, and most people, like, especially if you're outside of the minority community, like, you forget about it.
Yeah. It's a really, really hard job. I don't envy it. I respect, I know a lot of officers that I do respect, and some of them are some of the finest people that I do know. But it doesn't change what happened, and it doesn't change, who those people are that were involved in that situation there and involved in my situation in Long Beach and, hundreds of other situations. And
Yeah,
things need to change. Police culture needs to change.
that's for sure, man. I think the move is jiu-jitsu. I think that forging of your character over that time, dealing with folks that are outside your circle, right? Cops hang out with cops for the most part. Like firefighters, they hang out with firefighters. Going through that, meeting folks from different backgrounds, like, you do have a different appreciation for all types of folks that you meet in a jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah.
So beyond the level of competence that you go into any situation with from the training perspective, you're now surrounded by 30 to 40 guys who you get to know relatively intimately pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that process is, I think, what'll save the most lives.
Community-based stuff's important too.
Yeah.
I know when you take cops out of cars and you have them actually walking around and interacting in the neighborhoods they police, that makes a big difference.
For sure.
I think different standards of physical competency and mental competency would make a big difference. I think we need to eliminate the paramilitary gear.
Yeah.
I think that's a little absurd and sending the wrong message.
We're ready for war as opposed to we're here to protect and serve.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, it will be, I don't know. All I can say is I hope that we're not having this conversation again in another 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 1
Yeah.
year or 3 years. I hope that this is not another incendiary moment that everyone's up in arms about. And, when the 15 minutes of attention is up, we're back to
That's the scary part, man, is like, where does stuff get attention in today's...
on, whatever else is the next, the next big clickbait story. Feels 100%. Different, though.
Yeah, it definitely feels different. I think this is unprecedented.
Feels like maybe some shit's going to kick loose.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm going to do my part by taking care of my hula hoop.
Do it, man. We're supporting you.
Thank you. You guys are. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Cool, dude.
This a wrap?
Hell yeah.
We out?
Let's do it.
Thank you, my brother.
Thanks, dude.